God has put on my heart. What I don't want is for anyone to hear this story and think that it is a complete reflection of the people or the church involved, or that it is a complete reflection of my feelings or opinion towards them. I am not standing up here with the intention of making anyone think negatively about anyone, but I can only share my story. I can't really come up here and tell you somebody else's story. And so, when I was an intern, my second year of internship, there was a Wednesday night in January, and I had a great day. I got there, they were having staff prayer in the youth area rather than the sanctuary, so it was like right where there. I didn't have to rush for the sanctuary. I sat with some friends. A friend of mine gave me magazines that I could use for my vision board. I had a very productive day at work. The only issue was that I had a very persistent headache and dizzy spells all day long. But it wasn't that unusual. I experienced those symptoms all the time. They weren't bad enough to where they were stopping me from doing what I was doing. They were just pretty annoying. At the end of the day, we were having a meeting where we were kind of assigning jobs and figuring out how we were supposed to go forward with the service that was coming up and stuff. And so the other two people that I was meeting with, one of them had to go volunteer, one of them had to go work in the cafe. I was going to be meeting a friend for dinner, but she wasn't quite there yet, so I decided to stay and try to wrap up my work. And I had to go to the bathroom, so I got up and I was walking into the bathroom and I almost ran into the other intern in my department. And right in that moment, I realized that my vision was coming back, that like the edges of my vision had become black and that was fading away and I could see again, because my dizzy spell had gotten really, really bad at this point. After that, I went back to where I was working. I was working in a room where no one was at. And everything from that point forward kept getting worse and worse at a very quick rate. My headache grew worse. My dizziness got worse. I began having what I guess would be hot flashes. Like it, honestly, like my whole back kind of felt like it was on fire. Like I felt like someone was taking a heater and pushing it against my back and then pulling it away because it would like lighten up a little bit and then it'd get hotter again. Like someone was just moving a heater closer and away from me. I was shaking. I started having heart palpitations at one point. My chest started hurting, and just all of these things kind of piled on top of each other, and they just kind of kept getting worse, and I was feeling all kinds of awful. The first thing I did was reached out to my team that I worked with. Was a pastor, his assistant, and another intern. I think maybe my internship director, and a couple of close friends, and my parents. My parents ended up having to come get me. From everyone, aside from my parents, I got all of the typical responses. I'm sorry, I'm praying for you, let us know how you're feeling later. I felt in this time like I needed to call an ambulance, but I was scared. Both me and several of my friends have had experiences with feeling belittled or even gaslit at times by medical professionals. In fact, like 2 weeks prior to this, my friend had had to call an ambulance and was the experience was very much just demeaning towards her, and so that obviously didn't necessarily help my feelings at this time. But besides that, I also knew with my insurance that an emergency room trip is only covered if they find something wrong. So then I was like, well, if they don't see what's wrong, that's a big bill. My parents have to pay. I don't want to put that on my parents. And I felt weird. I was in a room by myself. And I was like, and then the ambulance is going to show up here and no one's going to know what's going on. And I just felt awkward. And so I didn't. By the time my parents were able to get to me, because they were at a doctor's appointment for my dad at the time, it was 2 hours. I sat in a room alone, feeling like I was dying for 2 hours. And I was in a church. By the time they got to me, within that last couple minutes before they got to me, everything pretty much subsided. And so I was just very tired and had a headache. And so I didn't feel like, my mom was like, you want to go to the emergency room? And I'm like, what am I going to tell them at this point? That I have a headache? Like, I felt weird. So we just went home. I just wanted to go to sleep. After that, for a couple of weeks, I was dizzy all day, every single day. Car rides were extremely uncomfortable for me. And then after that, it was a little less often, but I was still dizzy at least once every day. Most of my dizzy spells were pretty bad. Some days I was dizzy all day. car rides continued to be very uncomfortable for me for several months. It took over a week when this happened for the person that I considered to be my best friend, who I reached out to immediately, probably before I reached out to anybody else, I think. It took over a week for them to reach out to me and ask me if I was okay or how I was doing because I had missed work. I'm not telling you this because I want pity or sympathy. I'm not telling you this because I want to stand up here and be like, I deserve better or anything like that. I'm not telling you this to make you feel negatively about certain people or whatever. But what I want to do is paint a picture of what that I feel illustrates change that I believe is needed in the church as a whole. I believe we have become very passive when it comes to helping others. We believe that not actively hurting others is all it takes to be kind and to show love. We are passive and complacent rather than active when it comes to walking with each other. I believe that skit, Not My Problem, illustrates this perfectly, and that's why I wanted to show it. Ignoring the problem doesn't make it go away, and ignoring the hurting person doesn't make them okay. I heard a teaching a while back on the Good Samaritan that forever changed the way that I see the story. I'm sure it's probably very common, but it was the first time I had ever heard this particular aspect brought up. But when I try to quote something that I don't have directly written down, I butcher it very badly. So I looked it up. I found an article that explains the point. I'm going to read just a short paragraph of that so that it makes sense and doesn't come out very tongue-tied. So this says, the traveler is badly beaten and barely hanging on to life when a priest comes across him. But the initial hope is soon dissipated. The priest doesn't help. Not only does he not help, Jesus makes clear that he went out of his way to pass by on the other side of this dead traveler. He wants nothing to do with him. Next, a Levite comes by the bloody traveler. Surely he will stop and help, right? Nope, he too passes by on the other side. To really understand what is going on in Jesus' story, we need to understand the customs of the day. Both of these first two people are clergymen. A priest's job was to officiate temple sacrifices, and a Levite's helped maintain the temple and its services. Both of these jobs required them to be ceremonially clean while on duty. There was a list of things they couldn't do, and one of them being touching a dead body or really any bodily fluid. In essence, these religious leaders were placing their adherence to rules over the needs of people. They missed the point. These religious leaders were more concerned with their outward appearance of cleanliness than the actual condition of their heart. Technically, they didn't really do wrong. Technically, they did what was expected of them. They did what was normal. They didn't hurt the guy. They just did what they would normally do. Where they fail is that they didn't do what was right. They placed, as we often do, religious practice over compassion, fulfilling law over showing love, and doing for God over trying to be like him. Romans 12:15 says to rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. The Passion Translation words it to weep with those who grieve. Having gone through grieving this past year, I can say so many people try to help and try to fix things and end up hurting you more in the process. And there is help that definitely does feel good. It helps when people cook meals for you. There's things that are helpful that people do. But oftentimes, one of the most helpful things, one of the most touching things, the thing that makes you feel the most loved in those times is the people who just come and sit with you, the people who will cry with you, who will talk with you, who will listen to you. Someone just being there oftentimes is the thing that makes a huge difference. Romans 12:14-16 in the Message says, bless your enemies, no cursing under your breath. Laugh with your happy friends when they're happy, and share tears when they're down. Get along with each other and don't be stuck up. Make friends with nobodies and don't be the great somebody. I love the way this words that verse. Laugh with your happy friends when they are happy, and share tears when they are down. We are to rejoice with those who are rejoicing, not be jealous, not complain, not be annoyed with them or to ignore them. And we are to weep with those who weep, not tell the weeping that they need to stop weeping. It is very hard to rejoice with people when you are hurt. It is hard to be happy for somebody else when you are hurting. I've gone through it where it seems like every single thing in my life feels like it's falling apart, and then there's someone else where everything in their life is falling together. And I know it can be very hard to be happy for them when you're not happy. And likewise, oftentimes we get annoyed with people who are sad or are hurting sometimes when we don't feel that way. Oftentimes we feel the need to tell people that they just need to suck it up, or they need to pull themselves together, or something along those lines. Sometimes we out of context pull verses about joy to tell a person who is sad that they don't have the right to be sad. But God doesn't tell us to do the easy thing. He tells us to be with people where they are, wherever that may be. He doesn't tell us to rejoice with our rejoicing friends only when we are happy, and he doesn't tell us to weep with our weeping friends only when we are sad. We are to be with each other in what each other is experiencing, no matter what we're experiencing ourselves. Galatians 6:2 says to bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. John 15:12 says, this is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. My question for you to think about would be, how did Jesus love? If we are to love one another the way Jesus loved us, we have to know how Jesus loved. Romans 12:13 says to contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality. Philippians 2:4, let each of you look not only to his interests, but also to the interests of others. If we all make an effort to walk with those around us, none of us will be walking alone. Oftentimes when it comes to being told that we need to help or to be there for people and things, we think, well, nobody's helping me. Well, nobody's there for me. When I'm sad, there's no one there to listen to me. When I'm hurting, there's no one there praying for me. Or when I'm excited by myself and no one's celebrating with me. But the thing is if we all got our focus off of ourselves and onto each other, and every one of us did what we were supposed to do in walking with each other, we would all have someone walking with us. None of us would be walking on our own. But when everyone gets focused on ourselves, when everyone is focused on only what we need and what we want, and none of us do anything for anyone else, all of us end up by ourselves. Proverbs 11:25 in the NIV says, a generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. Acts chapter 20 verse 35 says, in all things I have shown that by working hard in this way, we must help the weak and remember the words of the Lord Jesus, how he himself said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. 1 Thessalonians 5:11 says, therefore encourage one another and build one another up, just as you are doing. You don't have to do everything for everyone, but you should be doing something for someone. I would like to close I feel like I ran through this really fast, but I want to close by telling you another story and maybe end this on a little bit of a lighter or more positive note than we started off on. My first year of internship, we went to conference. It was in downtown LA. It was pouring rain the entire weekend, or at least it was pouring rain the first day and freezing cold the second day. It might not have been raining, but it was cold. It was raining. I did not pack for cold and rain. I got a cold the day before we went. I don't know if you've ever just walked around the streets outside there, but it is not a very welcoming environment for somebody who deals with anxiety or who gets sensory overload. It is loud, it is crowded, there is cars everywhere, the traffic is insane, people do not necessarily follow they're supposed to be following. There's especially when you're walking at night, all the street lights are all right there, and it's really bright, and when you're having to cross the crosswalk, you're running for your life, because it's not necessarily a longer time than anywhere else, but it is a lot of lanes that you have to cross. And the other people that are walking, they're not necessarily very nice. They are they're trying to get where they're trying to get, and they will cut you off. And so the first night there, besides it being a new place and being scary, and besides me being sick, and I was wearing a jean jacket because I didn't pack for rain because it wasn't supposed to rain, and so I was soaked through and freezing cold and shaking. The first night we were walking, I was walking with my group, and I was a little slower than everyone else because I also didn't pack shoes to be walking as far as I was walking. And I got cut off. I kept getting cut off by this one guy. He kept just going in front of me because I guess I wasn't walking fast enough. So then I would freak out and I would speed up to go past him to catch up with my group. And he did this to me 10 times. And it was terrifying. And I was having an awful time. But the thing is I walked away with this conference, like, yes, I remember what happened, but I walked away from this conference not with the feelings of what happened then, not with like the negative feelings or anything. I remember the events because I remember them, but I didn't walk away just with a few fun memories with some friends, and I didn't walk away with just some memorable quotes from a conference. I walked away knowing that I wasn't standing alone and believing for my healing, because the first night when they had a call for everyone to raise their hand if they needed healing, like the entire group of interns all turned towards me, and I had like a bunch of people with their hands on me, or at least just turned and stretching their hand or touching somebody else. I walked away feeling seen and cared about, feeling like I belonged and like I mattered to people, because there were pastors that I hadn't met before that didn't work in my department that took the time to just sit and have a conversation with me. Because the first night I dropped my pin on the floor and one of the other interns picked it up and he's like, here, and switched me and gave me his because mine got scratched when I dropped it. Because I had several interns offer me jackets when I was soaked through with rain, and the one that I took, the person's jacket that I did took, let me keep it for a long time. Because they all saw that I was freezing cold. Because they all kept checking on me, even if I wouldn't tell them what was wrong. They were constantly seeing if I was okay, because I had a friend who offered me cough, not even a friend, there was an intern that I didn't know very well, who the entire trip kept asking if I needed more cough drops because I was running out and she had some. Because the first morning, or the second morning technically, but because the morning conference, they all went to get coffee, and I just wanted to go sit, and I went and sat in the conference, and the intern director brought me hot cocoa because she knew I had a sore throat. I walked away knowing that I can do things that are scary and go to new places when I have community with me. I left there having been able to let go and forgive people because a friend had my back literally. I'll never forget it. It was the second night. They had all the pastors come to the front and told people to come pray for them. So both me and my friend were up there. I didn't even know she was close to where I was. I knew she went up there, but I didn't know she was close to where I was. After that, they did another call for people who had to forgive people, for people who had been hurting and carrying a burden. And I don't remember the exact words, but they said to raise your hand and just to pray if you needed to forgive somebody. They didn't direct anybody else to pray for you or anything. They just said raise your hand and pray. And my friend came and stood next to me, and she placed her hand firmly in the middle of my back. I don't know what she prayed, if she prayed anything at all. I didn't hear her, but the whole time I was praying, I felt her hand in the middle of my back, and it felt almost as if that was physically holding me up. And I can't explain it, but spiritually, I felt strengthened. I was able to do something that I hadn't been able to do for years because I had support there. And so I walked away from what could have potentially been a very rough weekend or just another conference with a lot of positive change in my life, with a lot of great good feelings and good memories, because there were people who were there with me, who walked with me in these moments. When we walk through life together, it's better because that is how we were designed. I'll probably not explain this very well, but I know Pastor Jen always talks about when she was in Bible college and someone was talking about the armor of God, and that the reason it doesn't cover your back is because we are to have each other's backs. I want to challenge you, and I'm sure you probably didn't. Well, you should, because Sister Ginny gives us homework sometimes too. I was going to say you probably didn't come to church expecting homework, but you should. But I want to challenge you to do something, and I'm challenging myself too. It's kind of similar to a project I had in Bible college, but a little different. But the first step is I want you to reflect. When it comes to this message, where are you? Who is it easy for you to love? Who is it easy for you to walk with? Who is it not so easy for you to love? Who is it not so easy for you to walk with? What areas are you strong in? What areas is this easy for you, and what areas is this hard for you? Is it easy for you to rejoice with others when they're rejoicing? Is it easier for you to be there for someone who is grieving? I feel like often, or you're not good at either of those, and there's something else. Just reflect, take time to talk to God about where you are, and also what are your strengths in general when it comes to, as the body of Christ, we all have something that we bring to the table. None of us bring everything, but we all have pieces. And so what is your piece? What is it that you have? What is it that you can do? Second step is to pray. Ask God to help you see the people around you and see where their needs are, how you can be there for them, and ask Him to show you what to do, what you can do, and more importantly, ask Him what He wants you to do, and ask Him to equip you for it. And I'd also say, and this is an instance where another place where we need to ask God for humility. It's a dangerous prayer to pray, for sure, but a huge part of this is where we fail to be there for one another, where we fail to walk with one another, is when we get focused on ourselves. And obviously with any of these things, it's not exclusive to only the questions that I put. When you're reflect on whatever it is God put in your heart. And when you're praying, be led by the Spirit and pray. And then apply what you learned. Be intentional in noticing the needs and noticing those around you, and then be intentional in being there for them. It takes intentionality in both steps, because you can say, well, I can't see anyway, I can be there for anyone. Well, if you're not paying attention to anyone around you, you're not going to see it. And then likewise, you can say, oh, well, I notice the people who are hurting, and you can do nothing about it. So it takes intentionality in both steps. And then journal about your experience. How do you feel? Was it easy? Was it hard? Did your flesh bother you a little bit? What did you do? Where do you now? And then reflect it again. Where do you see? You can journal about where you want to grow, where you see you are now. Maybe there's something you'll see after that you didn't see before. And then I would also say, consider talking to someone. I'm going to be very careful about the way I say this. Be careful not to just go to someone and list off all the great things you did for people and how amazing you are at being there for other people and how great of a brother or sister in Christ you are. Because this isn't about our pride. This is not the goal of what I'm saying to talk to someone. But it can be beneficial to talk to a trusted friend or mentor, somebody who not only is a Christian, is in Christ, and also has a strong relationship with the Lord, about your experience, about how you want to grow, about areas you notice that you feel weak in, or areas you notice maybe that God gifted you in. This was something so my project that I had to do in Bible college was that we had to do something nice we had to reach out to people that weren't necessarily, not in our circle, not in our church, to reach out to our neighbors, people that were around us, or people at work or something, but not something like witnessing, it was just do something nice for someone around you, meet a need, bring your neighbor's trash cans in, or something like that. And then we had a partner that we were supposed to meet with and talk with about, because not all of us we weren't doing these things before. We were Bible college students and working and in church, and it consumed our whole life. So we'll talk about it, but to make sure that this conversation, so I do see where this can be very beneficial, but make sure that this conversation is biblical and God-centered, and not a listing of how amazing you are, your accomplishments, or just sitting there and beating yourself up to someone and talking about how horrible of a person you are and how you're never there for anybody and how much you suck. Neither of those things are beneficial. We want to make sure God's in the middle of the conversation. Yeah, but this is something that, I don't think I said my title, but my title is Hand in Hand, Shoulder to Shoulder, and Heart to Heart. I asked Pastor Dawn if I could use it, because that's kind of her mission statement, but I felt like nothing else summed up what I wanted to say and could sum up what I felt God was putting on my heart any better than this. And I think, and I'm not coming after any one church or group of people. I think this is something that I've just noticed in general, where all of us may have kind of gotten away from things. I was thinking about it, and I was praying this week and last night as I was going over my message. And when churches have go to make meals for somebody, or when we go to have an outreach or something like that, there should never, especially as churches grow and get bigger, we should never have a shortage of people that are willing to or jumping up to be a part of that. When you have a family in a church that is grieving, it shouldn't be hard for the pastor to find people to bring that person to that family meals, or when it's someone had surgery or maybe we should never have difficulty finding people to do these things, because we should all be so, and obviously that also comes with how many people you have and stuff, but we should all want to be there for one another so much. We should all have such a heart for each other that it is never hard for a pastor to get people to do something for one another. In closing, I just wanted to reiterate a couple points, and then we're going to pray. You do not have to do everything for everyone, but you can do something for someone. If we all make the effort to walk with those around us, none of us will be walking alone. And then let's make an effort to walk through life together, hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, and heart to heart. Dear Heavenly Father, I just thank you for this opportunity tonight to share your word. Father God, I ask that you would help us, Lord God, that this wouldn't, we wouldn't just hear it and think it sounds nice, or hear it and it fall away, Lord God, but that this would your word would be planted in good soil, Father God, that we would apply it to our lives, Father God, and that it would continue to grow in us, Lord God. Lord God, help us all to see one another through your eyes, Father God. Help us to not become focused on ourselves, our needs, and our wants, Father God, but to really walk together in unity as you have.